Hello, and welcome to another episode of This is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. I am Rico, and I'd like to remind everyone again that I am not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, and I'm not a medical professional in any way. Just a regular person trying to navigate through life and trying to navigate what's going on in here. It's better, but it's still a mess. But it's better. I can say that. My way of thinking has changed a little bit. I see things for what they are, not what they should be or could be, and it's helped me tremendously. I guess sometimes hindsight is 2020, not always. If you're a revisionist and you see things, you remember things different than what they were, that's kind of a problem. But I am trying my best to accurately, accurately, accurately try to remember how things were and how I felt for those times. And I can only speak on my own behalf. I can only speak on my own perspective. I can only speak on my own perception, and that's really all I'm trying to do is just talk about how I felt in certain situations and go from there. I, again, don't mean to say that the people in my life were doing things maliciously or trying to hurt me, but I do recognize that when I was hurt, it was just not that big of a deal. So, with that, I'm going to continue on with this series. And I left off the last video I did about my dreams because they were fresh in my mind, and I really wanted to touch down on them while it was still new. And I wrote them down like in the morning when I woke up, and wanted to do an episode on that. But I want to get back to my life, my home life. I left off with the last video talking about how I had moved out of the house. Things were just not working out for us anymore. We decided to split up for a bit, and divorce was imminent. We knew it was coming. There was no other way. It was just how things were. I tried finding some places to stay for a little bit, and even though they were temporary, they were both horrible. I stayed with some friends. I rented a room. Neither one was a very pleasant experience at all. But during that time, I did find an apartment. And it was nice because it was affordable. It was cozy. It wasn't huge. It was just a one bedroom, but it was nice. It had some space. It had a lot of potential. It was on the bottom floor, so that made me happy. I liked being on the bottom floor for some reason. I don't know why. I just felt better that way. Maybe it was because when I was a kid, I had my room in the basement, my dad's house. And, being down on the bottom just kind of felt better for me. I can't explain it. But I finally found the apartment, and I didn't have much. I only had, as far as furniture, I just had like hand-me-down stuff. I had stuff that I had collected from working in the moving company. There was always jobs where people were throwing furniture away that they just didn't want anymore. So I would grab it when I could, if it was nice. I didn't always grab stuff because people would throw stuff away that was actual junk. And I did buy a new bed because I didn't have a bed. And I didn't put it on a bed frame. I left it on the floor so that Henry and Phineas could get up on there easily. I loved it when my dogs slept in the bed with me, especially when it was really cold. We kept each other warm. And, it was nice. It was nice. So I did manage to get my drums set up as well. And that made me happy just to have them set up so I could play every once in a while. This was an apartment, so I couldn't play loud and I couldn't play very, very often as much as I wanted, but I could at least play. And I'm going to take a real quick break, and I'll be right back with a little more of This is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. Welcome back to This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. This video, I am on the topic of my apartment. Um, Quite honestly, it was the first place I had all to myself. So it was exciting. Even though I was 46 at the time, it was my first place all by myself. I wish I had done it in the past. I wish I did it when I was young, but like I said before, you can't go back and change anything. You just accept it for what it was. And, I moved out of my parents' house with my ex, and that's just the way it was. But getting back to my apartment, it took me quite a while to get everything out of the house because I have a lot of stuff. Um, I started bringing as much as I could into the apartment, and after a while, things started to get a little crowded. I did buy some furniture, some stuff from local department store. It was not too terribly expensive, but I just needed somewhere to put my stuff. I needed some bookshelves. I needed some nightstands. I needed, you know, a dresser. I didn't have anywhere to put my clothes. Everything was just kind of still in baskets. And, you know, I did manage to streamline my inventory a bit. I threw out a lot of stuff. I took a lot of stuff to the consignment shops and just let them have it. Stuff that was still pretty good. I got rid of a bunch of clothes. That was the time that I had lost weight, so I got rid of all of my colorful clothes and replaced everything with black clothing. Everything I wear now is black, and I just cannot handle colors anymore. It's just how I am, and I accept that. I don't need colors. I don't need to wear bright colors. Anyone that wears bright colors, that's great. I'm happy for you. You express yourself however you want to. This is how I express myself. I just need the black because it's easier for me on my eyes, and I feel more myself when I wear black. But getting rid of getting rid of a lot of stuff sure helped, even though it was a lot of stuff that I had collected my whole life, and I didn't want to part with some of it, but some of it I just didn't need. Some of it just was in the way. So it was good to make room. But the only problem with me is that if I make room, that means I have room for more stuff. And I did just that. I replaced all of my stuff with new stuff. I went crazy. I can kind of link it back to my parents always telling me no whenever I would want something. My mom saving my money for me, and then whenever I wanted to buy something with my own money, she would just kind of tell me no and try to control what I was buying. When I was married, even though it was our bank account, she tried to control everything and would freak out when I would buy little things. I would buy DVDs for $10 and she would freak out. I would buy a t-shirt for $10 and she would freak out every time. It's like I had to get permission to buy stuff. And half the time when I would ask, then I was denied. And I honestly think this was my way of getting back in a weird kind of way. Like I was doing it out of spite. Like now I can buy whatever I want. I can get some credit and I can go out and buy whatever I want. I went and I did that. I got whatever I wanted. I collected a whole bunch of action figures, movies. I got myself a couple of new TVs. I got myself a bunch of plushies. I'm not embarrassed by any of it. I will admit I love the plushies and I have a whole bunch of them. And whatever I wanted. All the stuff, it was all the stuff that I was embarrassed to have before. Like I worried about what other people thought, and I was worried that they would think I was a weirdo or something. I was just worried about what they thought. And I finally got to a point where I didn't care about it anymore. If you want to make fun of me, go ahead. That just means you're insecure about yourself if you have to attack somebody else for what they're doing. If you're going to attack somebody If you're going to attack somebody for what they love, that says more about you than it does about the person you're attacking. This person is just expressing themselves how they see fit, and if you have a problem with it, that's on you or whoever is doing it. I'm not saying you personally, I'm just saying anyone who wants to try and embarrass somebody or make them feel bad or make them feel weird about what they love, then you're really not a person that I would want to associate with anymore. And that's what I had to do. I had to get myself away from everyone that would judgingly criticize the things that I loved, the things that I did, the things that I had. But I'm going to take another break, and I'll be back with some more of This Is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. Welcome back to This Is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. Getting back to my first apartment alone, having the space all to myself, and the fact that I finally got to a point in my life where I didn't care what other people thought anymore. I didn't care what they thought whatsoever. I was finally in a place where I could do everything for me. Everything was for me. And every time I say that, it sounds selfish to me and maybe a little self-centered, but my whole life I had done everything for everyone else. And I've sacrificed much of myself for those around me, for those I cared about. And it just seemed like the more I gave, the more they wanted, the more they took, the more I could do, the more they wanted me to do. The more I gave of myself, the more they wanted to take from me. And it just never seemed like any of it was appreciated. None of it was appreciated. I just was expected to do more, expected to give a little more. And, I did it all just trying to keep the peace. If I give up myself to make this person happy, then at least that person is happy. And that's not fair to me. Again, it sounds self-centered. It sounds selfish, but I'm sure everyone knows what it's like to want to do things for themselves, want to take care of themselves. You have to take care of yourself. You can take care of others, but don't do it to the point of giving up who you are, or at least sacrificing much of yourself for their sake, because they're just going to keep taking and keep taking. And I know there is exceptions, and there are exceptions to that rule, but in my case, I had enough, and I needed to get away, and I needed to be by myself. And it was a brand new feeling. It was a brand new feeling, only thinking of myself. Now, I'm not saying I didn't think of others. I still thought of those that were close to me. I still thought of my boys, and I still thought of people that cared. But at this point, I finally was able to do it for myself. Finally, everything for me. And it was completely unfamiliar. Like my entire life, I swear, I just never really got to be who I was. I was always pushed to be what the others wanted of me. My parents wanted me to be somebody different. My ex-wife wanted me to be someone different. They never really accepted me for who I was. And I was never free to be who I was, because there was always criticism. There was always some kind of rude comments to make me embarrassed, to make me second guess myself, to make me second guess everything I was doing. And in order to avoid that, I would just hide it. And I would just hide it. It was the equivalent of keeping all my stuff in the closet so that it was out of sight. So if it's out of sight, it doesn't exist, more or less. If you keep it hidden, then people don't have to deal with it. And, I decided to finally stand up for myself, which felt pretty good because I never really did that before. I had to learn how to do it myself. I had to learn how to speak up. I had to learn how to stand up for myself. I had to learn how to defend myself all by myself. I didn't have any influences or examples to teach me any of that, because they exploited the fact that they could keep me down, that they could control me, that they could talk to me in certain ways. And they totally took advantage of that as much as they could. Excuse me, as much as they could. I lifted myself up. This was the time where I started calling myself the Golden God, because nobody else was going to do it. I looked for approval everywhere and anywhere, and I could not find it. People just kind of tolerated me, but nobody was there giving me a pat on the back. Nobody was there to give me a good job. Nobody was there to, share my enthusiasm for whatever it was I was doing. No one. So I had to do it myself. I started calling myself a golden god. I started telling people that I was a golden god. And I'm like, if you're not going to do it, I have to do it. And I'm not, at this point, I am not, I'm not embarrassed to do it myself. I am not going to let you guys keep me down anymore. It, and I wish I could say that that solved everything. And it didn't, because there were still instances where somebody would kind of take advantage. There were those that would judge and criticize and make me take a step back and start to second guess myself. But when I did that, I had to stop and look at it from the point of view of the adult that would have taken care of that child. It took me a long time to get there. And even then, when I started to think of things that way, it was still fresh, it was still new, it was still unfamiliar. But I was getting better at defending myself and, not reacting negatively like I did much of the past. And it was exactly what my soul needed. I needed to distance myself from those that were taking advantage, and I had to lift myself up. And it worked to an extent. I'm going to take a real quick break, and I'll be back with a little bit more of This is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. Welcome back to This is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. In this last segment, I just want to finish up with how good it felt to have my own apartment, my own space, my own something that was my own, something I didn't have to share, something I didn't have to compromise. Much of the time, compromise just meant doing what the other person wanted. There was never a meet in the middle. It was either my way or no way, and that was how it was. And you can only take that for so long. But like I mentioned before, this was just what my soul needed. I could decorate how I wanted. I can display my action figures however I wanted. I can put whatever on the walls I wanted. I do like a spooky Halloween vibe. I like skulls. I like scary stuff. I like the color black. I like things like that. My place looked like a Halloween museum. It was fun. I loved it. I loved it so much. I just wished that I had someone to share my enthusiasm with me. But at least I was happy to have the enthusiasm, because I didn't really have it before. Everything I did was just kind of for somebody else, and I was just so happy to be on my own. Even though I was struggling financially, I still had my own space, and it was all mine. And I'm not going to say that I didn't enjoy any of my past life. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy any of my childhood or my 20s or my marriage. There were plenty of good times with all of it. I had lots of fun times as a kid. they were just kind of few and far between. And the same with my 20s, where I was just kind of struggling, but I would have some really good times with my friends, or I'd have good times with whoever I was seeing at the time, having good times with my brothers, even though those became more and more challenging. We had some good times in the beginning. When I first got married, we had some really good times. We had some really fun times with baby boys. So I'm not saying that all of it was horrible. There were just certain things about it that were horrible, and then as time went on, they just kind of kept growing and growing and growing and increasing, and then the fun times went away, and then that's all that was left. So I just want to say that I'm not saying that all of my life was bad. I've had plenty of good times. I've had plenty of good times with my friends, and you know, this just felt good to be somewhere where I could feel exactly how I wanted to feel. Um, so I just wasn't I just wasn't happy overall. Things were good, but I still wasn't allowed to be myself. When things were good, I still wasn't allowed to express myself how I wanted. When things were good, I still wasn't allowed to, you know, display the things that I loved. I had to keep it all hidden, and I was tired of that. I wasn't allowed to be myself. But now I was free. I could do things how I wanted, and I did do things how I wanted. Now I will touch down on a little more on how I went a little overboard, but that's a story for another video. And I just want to conclude this video by saying that I did have some good times, and I had lots of bad times, and here I was, finally in a spot where I could just be myself without any judgment or criticism. And I feel like everyone should have that freedom. Everyone should be free to be themselves. Express yourselves how you want, dress how you want, talk how you want, watch what you want, buy what you want, and don't worry about what anybody else thinks. I personally think that when someone feels the need to attack you for the things you love, it's just them being jealous. They're jealous because you have something you love and you can express that. They're jealous that you express yourself freely. Maybe for some reason they don't feel the freedom to express themselves, so they take out their anger on those that can and act like it's weird and expect everyone to be like them. I kind of feel like my parents were that way. Like they were just kind of jealous. My dad was jealous because I was young. I could go out. I could meet women. I could go out with my friends. I could go out and have a good time. I could go to parties. And even though he got to do that stuff when he was younger, for some reason, and this is just my perception, is that I felt like he was jealous because I was able to go out and do those things. He was jealous because I was young, I was good looking, I was having fun, and he was not necessarily stuck at home, but he chose to be stuck at home. He chose to sit at his kitchen table and watch TV and drink his beers all the time. And when I would want to go out, he expected me to sit at home and drink beer and watch TV and just do nothing like he did. And that's just my perception. I think he was jealous. I think people that attack you for expressing yourself the way you want, living your life the way you want, are jealous. That's how I feel. I think they just kind of can't handle because they can't do it themselves. So in order to make themselves feel better, they're going to try to make you feel bad. And I really don't agree with that, and I don't like interacting with people that act that way. So I want to conclude this video. Just want to say that at this time of my life, I was at least feeling a little bit happy. I was at least feeling free. I was feeling like I was myself for a change. I kept my hair short for quite a few years, and I did it for comfort, for what's the word? Convenience. I could comb my hair with a washcloth. Is what I always used to say. I kept it really short. But once I was free to be myself and get away from everyone, have my own space, I started to grow my hair out again. And once my hair got to be a little bit long, I truly felt like myself again. And those are the little things that someone needs to do. If those are the little things that someone needs to do to feel like themselves, then that's what they should do, without criticism and without judgment from anybody else. So I'm going to conclude this video. I thank you all, especially from the heart of my bottom. I thank you and I appreciate you all for watching. I thank you for being here. I thank you for sticking with me and listening to all my stories and my ramblings. I thank you for watching. I thank you for the likes and the comments, and for being here. I thank you for existing. The world would not be as good of a place without you. It's a better place with you here. And I just want us all to hold each other up, support each other, be there for each other, and let's all live our lives how we want to, and we can all be happy, at least a little bit. That's all I want. But I will be back with some more videos. And again, I thank you for watching. This is Rico, trying to heal my inner child. Thank you, and please like, share, subscribe, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.